All right. So, my name is Seth Kakuske. I'm one of the co-founders at Optimally. We provide consulting services. We also build workflow automation software. This is the very, very corporate version of what we do, but based off of Kyle's presentation and kind of what I learned from out there, it seems like we're more about the backstories than we are about the sales pitch. So a lot of what you see will probably just be this slide or this one in the background, right? So. Got two versions of the story, right? So we had the long version that includes having the FBI called on us. We had a core piece of our process that included flying an employee to Vegas with a suitcase full of cash. And we actually won a bid where we sold a company their own data back to them. So that's the long version of the story. I can tell that and like have maybe 30 seconds left for Optimally, or I can kind of shorten that up and you guys can bring it up in Q&A, right? So I'm going to focus on like the last 5 years of Optimally, and then we can talk about the other stuff. All right, cool. All right, so Optimally launched in 2020. There were 8 of us that launched it. We all worked together at a previous company. At the time, we were an expense management firm. So what we would do is we had a list of expense types, and we'd work with businesses where we would negotiate on your behalf to lower your rates on things like your phone bill, wireless bills, merchant processing statements, even things like your uniforms and linens, and trash, right? And the billing model was that we would bill you for a percentage of whatever we save you. So if we knock $1,000 off a month, we bill you $500, everybody wins. If we don't save you anything, you don't pay anything, so it's risk-free, right? So it's a pretty easy thing to sell, and the business is growing, things are going good. So we're building out this negotiating practice. But then 2020 happened, inflation happened, those discounts were getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And to the point, some of the vendors were like, look, man, you're lucky we're only raising your rates 10%, not 20%. So be great. So that didn't work well with our billing model because you can't bill for savings that you can't secure. So it's time to pivot, right? So we go back to the drawing board and we're like, all right, so what is it that we can go do? Like I said, all of us came from a previous company, it's called Veriship. We were part of a team that went through department by department, documenting all the different processes, identifying where there's friction between the systems, inefficiencies, and then building software to go streamline and automate those things. So department by department, starting back in 2013, the company was maybe $4 million in revenue, I think 40 employees. 2019, company's $100 million in revenue, I think, or sorry, 100 employees, 20 million in revenue. So you can see the scaling difference where that revenue per employee was really cranked up. Right? So we thought, let's take that and wrap a business model around it. Right? So the idea is that we would work with our clients, we would document their processes, map out the different systems, identify the friction, the inefficiencies, and build software to go streamline those things. So then phase 2 is, all right, so what should the pricing model be for that? Because we don't want to just be like a standard traditional consulting company where we build the code, we charge you money, we hand it off and say, good luck. So with the previous company, one of the reasons we all left was because in 2019, it got acquired by a private equity firm. Right? So a private equity firm comes in, buys it. We learned that there's a difference between recurring revenue and reoccurring revenue, right? So that one letter makes a big difference. So the multiple on recurring revenue is quite a bit higher than reoccurring revenue. So we knew that whatever billing model we went with, we wanted to have a recurring revenue model. So we came up with this idea where we could marry the risk-free nature of the expense management firm with kind of the recurring business model. So this is where we could talk about tuition checks, because this is some lessons learned. So the idea was, we'd come into your business, we would do all that documentation I talked about, we'd start to build out the code, but we wouldn't charge you anything until the system goes live. And even when we do that, it would be a flat monthly fee that was predetermined before we even started. So we're trying to get in front of the competitors where you kind of have to give us a blank check. So we charge you billable hours, and if we run over budget, we just keep the meter running. You have to pay, and you don't know when you end up paying. Or there is a flat fee, like we're going to charge 50 grand to build the software, and if we start to run low on budget, our margins aren't there. We kind of cut some corners there. So there's a lot of competitors out there do that. We didn't want to do that thing. So pretty sweet little setup for a small, medium-sized business. You're going to get software that's going to streamline portions of your business, automate it, make you more scalable, ideally more profitable. You don't pay anything until the system goes live, so you get all of the benefits of those things for at least 30 days before the first bill comes due. And then in exchange for that flat monthly rate, we provide the support and the maintenance, and we're the ones responsible for keeping the system up and going. Right? So pretty sweet little model, right? It's risk-free. You don't pay anything until the system goes live. You get 30 days of benefit before you ever get the first bill. It's cash flow friendly because we're not charging the big lump sum for all the development costs. We're just spreading that out over the life of the contract. So lesson learned, tuition check. When you do that, if a client loses interest or gets cold feet or has second thoughts or reprioritizes, if they don't owe you anything until the system goes live, they're not really incentivized to help you get the system live. Right? So we had all these projects where you get half the system built, and now we're reaching out to the client saying, hey, how do you want a certain decision tree to work, or where you want this certain button to do when you click on it. They stop returning calls, so you can't get the system live, you can't bill anything, you just lost money and all that work. Right? So enter phase 3 now, so optimally 3.0, which is kind of where we are now, so that's where I have a couple slides we'll get to. So that's where we tacked on the consulting firm. So remember I said we do some consulting and some workflow management software. So the consulting piece is all that stuff on the front end that I was describing. We'll come in, we'll document all your processes, we'll map out where the friction is, where the inefficiencies are, and we'll give you the documentation or roadmap for what we would automate if we were to go build software to go do. We're going to charge you for that consulting engagement, but then you can do whatever you want with that stuff. You get the 30, 60, 90-day roadmap, you get an ROI analysis, you get all this neat stuff. And then our goal is to get you to move to phase 2, where now that you have all of that and you've worked with us and you've already bought into the idea of scaling your business and operating more profitably, go ahead and hire us to just do phase 2 and we'll build the software for you. And then we'll go right back to that recurring business model where we'll put you on the flat monthly fee based off of the scope of work. And so it's cash flow friendly, it's easy to budget. So that's what Optimally does. Cool? Cool. All right. There's the corporate version, right? We help companies scale, manage, and operational efficiency. This is what we call our MO. So this is kind of the general approach we take with every engagement for our client. So this is, so there's 3 stages. There's organize, execute, and optimize. Really what we want to do, the organize is that documentation phase. The execute is building it onto our software so they can run out there. And then optimize is the part where we stick with you, right? Part of that flat monthly fee is we're not going anywhere. So every quarter, we're happy to work with you, and we'll go through, so we're collecting results and kind of metadata around all the different workflows that are being automated, how much time it might be saving, where some bottlenecks might be. And then we want to continue iterating. So the idea is that, hey, we made a lot of progress with this initial round of the software. Now there's a new bottleneck. Some part of the system is the slowest moving part. Let's go fix that. And then let's get that organized, executed, see the results of that, and then let's identify the next bottleneck. So every time you get through this little loop, your business ideally is becoming more scalable, more profitable, more efficient. So the ideal client, short version, I'm going to skip some of this so we can just kind of get to the fun stuff. The ideal client, mid-market business, so maybe $5 million in revenue on the low end, $8 million on the high end. What they have in common is that they're trying to grow and scale their business, right? So they know that there's a better way to operate. If they're at $5 million, they're trying to get to $50 million. If they're at $80 million, they're trying to go sell to that private equity firm. That's where we can come in. So the ideal partners that we work with, so just a brief little story there, we can keep a pretty lean sales team by building out this partner ecosystem. So we'll partner with like fractional C-suites, so fractional COOs, CFOs, business coaches, so like EOS implementers or EMIP implementers and other types of coaches, and then also investment banks and M&A firms. And the idea there is that if you as a business have hired an EOS implementer, it's because you realize that there's a better way to run your business and you're trying to grow and scale. So that part of the sales process that box is already checked. And if they're coming in as a fractional C-suite, they can take care of like the strategic portion of kind of what that roadmap looks like. And we can essentially be the fractional analyst that builds the technology that helps implement that strategy, helps execute on it. Why companies hire us? Because they're tired of using spreadsheets, they're trying to scale their business. This is kind of what this is that 2-phase approach, right? So we have what we call the quick scan, the blueprint, the systems data, and the financial forecast. A lot of these are things that we learned from that whole acquisition process with PE. Right, so the quick scan and the blueprint is the documenting your processes, showing you where the friction is, all the way to helping you build a financial forecast, because some people just don't know what good looks like, if that makes sense. So when we were approached by the private equity firm to buy our last company, we hired an investment bank to kind of coach us through the process. They said, all right, well, you're going to need financial forecast, balance sheet, income statement, all these things. We thought they were all good. We showed them our financial forecast. Like, yeah, this is a good start. It's cute. It's kind of adorable. And so they helped us build out like a version of a forecast that we had never seen before. And so now that's the type of thing where, again, kind of the recurring theme here is we're trying to find businesses that are like what we were 5 or 10 years ago, and help them get to the point where we eventually got. So kind of paying those tuition checks forward. These are the lessons we learned along the way. We'd like to pass them on and help you out. Again, skipping the sales pitch. Boom, boom, boom. This is the automation part. This is an example of what some of that documentation can look like. This is a very simple version, but This would be included in some of that documentation phase. We're like, hey, if we were to go build some software for you, this is kind of a simple kind of a take. We have a much more detailed version of like what the specific decision trees would look like, so on. This is what our platform looks like. So our challenges. So one of them has been educating the market, right, along the way. So when you're building custom workflow software, we ended up with like this chicken and egg conversation where people would say, hey, great, what does your software do? And we'd say, well, what do you need to do? You can do whatever you want. And so you end up like, well, I just don't get it. How much does it cost? Well, it depends on what it is we go build. It's based off of the scope. And things never really moved forward, right? So we had, between that and the fact that we're selling through like these partner resellers, they're not full-time salespeople of ours. They have their own businesses. They're trying to tack these on so they can get that recurring commission. But if it's complicated enough to say, well, it's custom, you can do whatever you want, and it's not their full-time job, they're going to have a real hard time explaining that. The other is this broad ICP, right? So the idea is that we're industry agnostic. If you're within a certain range, you're trying to do a certain thing, we think that you're a target client. But then a lot of people would say, like, well, what industries do you excel in? Or like, what's your niche? It's like, dude, man, like, again, if they meet this revenue criteria, if they have these certain goals, we want to at least have that call and work with them. And that again was just like, it was just too broad. People figure out, they're like, so what industries though? Give me 2 industries. It's not gonna work. So partner activation is one where, so a lot of people, so here we go. The partner sales pitch is pretty easy. So the way it works is you have a relationship with the business, you make that referral. If they sign as a client, then every month that they pay their bill, we send you a percentage of that for as long as they're a client. So if they stay a client with us for 7 years, you're getting a commission check every month for 7 years. And it's kind of like an insurance business model, right? The more clients you can bring on, the more those commission checks you get, and the bigger that book grows, and you're kind of doing all right. So a lot of people quit to sign up like, heck yeah, dude, commission-only sales, let me do this. The issue is that they might not have a lead today, and they might have a lead in 6 months, but in that 6 months, they forgot who we are, they forgot what the pitch was, they forgot how to position us, and so you end up losing that lead, right? So how can we keep those partners engaged and activated so that when they finally get that lead in 6 to 9 months, they still remember who we are, how to broker that introduction, and how to kind of position us for that discovery call. Then you go into gatekeepers. That's the one where, hey, business is going good enough. We're growing. We had, I hope I don't sound too judgy when I say this, we had a prospect that said, dude, we grew 1.5% last year. We're fine. And so that probably is fine. And they're right that if that's their goal, they're probably not the right fit for us. But we do hear a lot of that where it's like, hey, no one knows my business as well as I know my business. Who are you guys to come in and tell me how to do things? Right? So getting past that's been a little bit of a struggle. Help, right? So that's part of this. So we've had partner-focused lead gen to this point, right? It allows us to keep our sales force real lean. Commissioning the sales force is great. We're trying to get now into some more direct outbound. We're trying to figure out what that looks like for all the same reasons I just brought up. You got this broad ICP. It's kind of hard to pick specific industries. You get that chicken and the egg of what you do, what you need us to do. So we're trying to figure out a more direct way to just kind of build out our own sales pipeline, not have to share as many commissions, and also kind of speeds up that feedback loop in terms of what messages are resonating and which ones aren't, so we can start to kind of iterate on our own marketing approach. And then the partner nurturing that I was talking about. So how do you stay top of mind? They don't need us today, but they might need us in 6 months or a year. How do we make sure that they don't forget us without coming across as spammy or whatever else? Threw these in here, these like to a website and some case studies. Again, this is kind of where we get to I try to just decorate a sales pitch deck as if it was a Cup of Joe deck. Right. So, short version, we do the consulting, we do the workflow automation. 5 years ago, that answer would have been we were an expense management company on a results-based billing model that didn't work, so we're on Optimally 3.0. Any questions? You guys want to talk about the FBI stuff now?
I want to hear about the FBI stuff.
Yeah. So the previous company that we worked at, that got acquired, was a shipping audit company. So it was an expense management company. We stole that idea, where we could audit your UPS and FedEx invoices and identify packages that were eligible for refund. So to do that, we would look at all the tracking numbers on your invoice, and we would just go to the internet and track those packages, and you could see all the stops. You could see when the package was supposed to be delivered and when it was actually delivered. Right? So over time, we're writing software to make the process more efficient. So we rolled out a new version of our code, and it worked a little better than we expected. So we ended up blowing up one of the carriers' websites with so many requests, they thought they were being hacked. Yeah, and so they called the FBI saying, hey, we think Russia's trying to take our website down. And Russia tries that, like, no, it's just this little company in Lee. We're just getting a call. So again, tuition checks and lessons learned. So that business, again, expense management firm, and it started off just auditing those packages, and then we had that team that just went to department to department, and we're able to expand from the auditing packages to helping negotiate rates to even build like a platform, like an analytics platform, so that you could actually see your own shipping performance and make your own improvements. So it started off as a side hustle from another business that we own, and then turned into a $100 million business that got acquired. Right? So the side hustle, the original business was a ticket brokerage business. So someone asked me how a ticket brokerage business became out of business. Okay, so this is back with physical tickets, right? So and nothing sexy about the business, the ticket business, right? We would buy tickets, mark them up, resell them for a profit. But physical tickets, we would have to FedEx them to you. So if you bought tickets to a Chiefs game, we'd FedEx them to you. If FedEx delivered that package late, you call us upset, you want your refund, so then we call FedEx upset, we want our refund. And that became such a hassle, like pretty much every Monday and Tuesday for all the people who miss their games on Sundays, that we wrote the software to audit our own FedEx invoices to identify the late packages so we could get in front of that. Then we're like, dude, if we have this problem, so that eventually grew to, we were making like 6 figures a year just in like refunds from FedEx. And so that's when we decided, like if we're having this challenge, we bet other businesses are having the same challenge, especially e-commerce businesses. Let's wrap a business model around that and go take it to the market. So that's what became the other company that me and the other Optimally co-founders all worked together before we launched Optimally.
So talk about your referral points or what you're talking about, keeping them cultivated. Are they local? Are they national? What's that look like?
Yeah, so they are national. Typically, they're self-employed consultants, so like fractional C-suite, people out there as fractional COOs, they're business coaches of some sort. And I'll talk about the investment banks and the M&A firms because it's a little bit separate. But so we have a partner portal. So if you're working with a client, you already have a relationship with that client, you have some credibility built in. If you want to be a partner, we just whip together a quick contract. We give you access to our partner portal. That's where we have training material, we have videos, we have even marketing material that you co-brand and kind of use as your own. Then when you're ready to make that introduction, you just register that lead real fast. So it'll ask for some basic information. We do a quick check to make sure no one else in our database is already working with them. So if you just make sure there's no conflict, that if we do close that deal, we have 2 people arguing over that commission. Don't need that. And then book that discovery call. And really, the handoff process is, my client or person I have a relationship, we meet optimally meet these other people. This is why I thought you guys should meet. From that point, our salesperson will take over that relationship. If that leads to closed business, then you get your commission. In that partner portal, you can see your whole pipeline. So you can see all the leads that you've registered and what the stage is. So like if we're in a proposing stage or if we're waiting on a call to get scheduled. And then that's also where you'll be able to see like, hey, what's the size of this particular deal? What's my commission going to be on a monthly basis?
So do you gather them regularly? Do you have like monthly meetings where you pull them all together? Or do you have a big association where you fly them in and pump them up, or what's that?
So, I haven't talked about that. That's a good idea, right? So we do have monthly webinars. So we'll do a monthly webinar. A lot of times it's on different aspects of our business and really how to position that with their own client base. So it isn't like, hey, look at this cool thing we did. It's like, look at this cool thing we did and how it could benefit your clients in this book of business.
And do you get engagement from that?
Some, yeah. We have a weekly newsletter, kind of same thing. So just sends it out to our mailing list saying, again, look at this stuff we're working on. These are kind of the updates. But also, like for example, we know that this time of year is like annual planning season for companies that are doing their 2026 budgeting and forecasting. So we're doing a special on that financial forecast that I was talking about. So again, it's like, hey, if you're looking for something to position or a way to kind of get your foot in the door, if this is planning season anyway, you can offer us up as a subcontractor. So it could be under your brand if you want. And you can just resell our services to go build this financial forecast for a client that's going to have to do it anyway. Especially if we can get in there and show them like the what if scenarios and some of like the things that we can do where you can simulate, model out and simulate different, well, if cash flow is this instead of that, what's the downstream impact? So we could do some pretty cool things with forecasts if we could get that chance to just demonstrate that to a prospect, then especially this time of year might resonate well. So, but it's, hey, let's, provide a 5 or 10% discount to kind of sweeten up the pot and see if we can do a couple of those. Because then, if that consulting engagement can then lead to an automation or a software engagement, all that.
It's probably a dumb question, but do you ever work with public organizations or companies or government? agencies?
So yeah, yes and no. We're working with the SBDC of South Carolina to digitize a disaster recovery plan, essentially. And so, it'd be kind of a series of workflows that we can document out for them that they can then share to their members. So hurricane hits, right? And there's a lot of different things you need to make sure accounted for, but it's a very stressful time, so it's easy to forget some of those things. And having an automated, rules-based workflow in place can help make sure that those things don't slip between the cracks. On the other side of that, we've also had a lot of struggles with municipalities and nonprofit types because they have like this really slow buying process, and usually have to go through different committees, and the budget is planned so far in advance that like if we're talking to you this year, it's really for budget next year. And so we've had a lot of conversations with those types of organizations that just never really materialized.
It's such a shame because they could use it the most.
Yeah, and but then every once in a while you get an SBDC and it works out.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
yep.
I got two questions. One is, from the time giving the consultation to, how long does it take you all to code repair?
Yeah, so how long does it take to build out the software? It depends on the scope of what it is that we're gonna go through, right? So if it's a pretty simple automation, it could be a month, right? A more complex one might be 2 or 3 months. We do shoot for 90 days, and I think our average is 60-ish, like in the 60s. So we usually turn around, but we never really commit to like, oh, it's gonna only take this long, because if you come in with some super complicated workflow, it's gonna take a little longer. And it's one of those things like, we kind of have version 2, where if we have questions and we need to reach out, we are counting on the client to be responsive to some degree to answer some of that stuff. And a lot of that's been cleared up by doing the consulting piece first, because we have a lot of those questions answered before we even start the build.
How long have you been coding?
20 years, I guess. I'm super old, dude. So my background was in software development. So the ticket business we were talking about, so it's a little bit like what you're describing. So again, nothing sexy about the ticket business. Buy the ticket, mark it up, sell it. But we need to scale it. We could use some software and technology, right? So we wrote some software to streamline, automate a lot of the steps associated with buying the tickets, listing the inventory, and reselling the tickets. And I think to some degree, that's why the secondary market's such a pain. So that software got so efficient, we were buying more tickets than we needed. So we wrapped a business model around that. We were licensing that software to our own competitors. And then one day eBay called up and they said, hey, we want to buy this software company for you. And it ended up becoming like a very small piece of a very early version of what became Stellar. So that's kind of, yeah.
How do you go about, how does the licensing your software, how does that work?
Our software, like the Oculus software?
Yeah,
Yeah, so I mean, we'll sign you up for a 12-month agreement from the date that the code goes live. And once we've done the consulting piece and we know kind of the scope of what it is you want us to build, we'll give you a monthly fee based off of like the ongoing support costs, but also trying to make up some of our development costs. And so the contract would say something like, we're going to charge you maybe $500 a month for access to the software for the next 12 months. At the end of that point, maybe there's an auto renewal, or we talk about what that ends up looking like. And then our margins are really made in every year that they renew, because ideally we can recoup at least the majority of our development costs in that first maybe 12 to 18 months. And then there's just support and maintenance from then on. And also along the way, kind of like that little Mo loop I was showing, every month we're trying to identify other areas that we can help optimize. And when we do that, it's a whole new project, right? So like this is a new build, and with that there's going to be a little bit of an increase to your monthly fee. So it's the renewals, but then also trying to add on some additional revenue just through the upsells or additional services.
Do you ever look at it, like help with an industry and realize, wow, there's such opportunity in this industry? Like I know with owning mobile home parks, there used to be a great software that was on that, being supported. And mobile home parks are different than mobile parks. It's just different, we need different things because I don't even know anything out there that is a good community software. And so like there's trade organizations, that like if you could get involved with one of those trade organizations and provide the product.
Yeah, so great question. And if you want to talk about mobile home software, let's talk about that. But so we had a client that was a home builders association. So they hired us to build this thing that helped them with this other thing. And then we realized, all right, well, if we could help one home builders association, we could probably help all the home builders associations. And some website was nice enough to publish a list of all the names and contacts of all the HBAs in the country, right? So that became our leads list, right? Pretty easy peasy, right? So now we have our leads list, the email bank to go blast, and we have the success story to go tell from the last HBA. So we send out a little email blast, another HBA raises their hand and says, hey, I'd like to call. We talk to them. It's a completely different solution that we built for them. So now we have 2 home builders associations and 2 very, very different solutions that we went and built for them. But then once we built that second solution, we did the same thing. Third one raises their hand, so they have like a call. Third workflow, right? So I think the idea of trying to find an industry and just really find like a common pain point that you can go solve, yeah, we're absolutely about it. We just haven't landed on it yet because every time we try, we get more leads from that industry, but with different use cases for us to go solve.
Interesting.
Yeah. Similar thing with EOS implementers. So just so you guys know, right? Once we realized that our partner pitch resonates well with fractional implementers, EOS has a public directory of all those people. We made our own mailing list. We blasted them and accidentally put the CEO of EOS Worldwide on that mailing list. He raised his hand, and we are now a preferred licensee of EOS. So if you guys have read Traction or Rocket or some of those other books, they bought into how they have their little 6 components. One of them is the processes piece. But it's one thing to just document the processes and talk about them. We can actually help you implement software to execute on them and keep them on the rails, right? So again, the difference between just the strategic lip service and actual the day-to-day execution.
Any more questions?
Any?
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
I want to thank everyone for coming out to the Cup of Joe. Great presentations today. We really appreciate it. Our September book for the book club is The AI Edge by Jed Blunt. Once again, the book club, we meet every last Wednesday of each month at 8 o'clock in the morning. We always have great conversations. We recommend that you read the book, but if you didn't get the chance to read the book, still come to the book club. And then we got some here. Improv night. October 2nd.
Already signed up.
Who's hosting this?
I'm hosting it thanks to somebody's suggestion whenever I gave my presentation. So this is my first workshop here. I've done some, but improv, think of it as like a color me mine for improv, okay? It's 2 hours of fun. Don't be intimidated, but also improv is great for everybody because it helps just free your mind. We're all improving as entrepreneurs in just our normal everyday. So don't be intimidated. Nobody's expecting you to be hilarious and go on Saturday Night Live tomorrow. Okay?
Darn, can I get a refund then? Because that's why I signed up. I'm looking for bigger and better things.
Once again, thank you for coming out to the Cup of Joe, and we'll see you next
And
week.
join us next week. Brian Jewell will be presenting a
Oh,
little
yeah.
snippet of what you're going to be presenting about.
My slide deck yet. We haven't got bankrupt yet.
But yeah, thanks again. We appreciate you all, and thanks for coming out.